Hello students, again we have came here to take up a very important topic of civil service examination. There are 7 units in our ethics paper and the 8th unit is case studies. So one of the 7 units which is a very important part from where questions always come is the aptitude and the foundational values of the civil services. We all know about the foundational values which we have in our society. Foundational values are there at our houses, values are there in our own personal life, and several values are called as the foundational values, means it's the foundation on which the whole structure is based. Along with that, UPSC have also merged a topic called aptitude. This is very important. You must be familiar with this word because many of the students are failing in civil service aptitude test nowadays. So UPSC takes an aptitude test, other examination also takes the aptitude test. So we will understand what is aptitude. We will also try to know what is the difference between attitude and aptitude. Several people confuse it with attitude, that is a totally different thing. Aptitude on the other hand is a different thing. So attitude and aptitude, we will go into it, we will try to understand what aptitude is not. It's a bit complex subject because there are so many overlappings. Some people call it interest, some people call it intelligence, but it's none of that. So we will see what is aptitude. Then in the foundational values of the civil service, we are going to study the values like integrity. One of the major important factor for effective, efficient and ethical governance in civil services is integrity. Another one is impartiality and non-partisanship. Civil servants have been given great power to spend money, to make rules, to make regulations, to take decisions which directly impact the life of people. If they are not integral in their job, at the same time if they show partiality, favoritism, nepotism, patronage, then you can imagine what will happen to the growth and development of the country. Only few people would be in power, meritocracy would be in dirt, and the country will be in ruins. So the steel frame, which it is called as since the British era, the civil services needs to have impartiality, and the laws and regulations, the checks and balances try to bring in impartiality, but until it is there in your bones, in your DNA, no rules and regulation can stop you, because some level of discretion is always available to a officer or to a leader or to whoever holds the power. Then comes objectivity. The opposite of this is subjectivity. Okay, so we will study what is objectivity, how it is important, how to cultivate objectivity. Dedication to public service, very easy. Dedication, you can have dedication to anything. You can be dedicated to your studies. You see religious people dedicated to their religion, spiritual people dedicated to the idea of oneness of the universe. In the similar fashion, you can also be dedicated to civil services if you are a part of it. Why it is important? You can be dedicated to many things at a time, yes of course, but you cannot be dedicated to public service and private service at the same time. So there is a distinction, or the self service for that matter. You can be dedicated to God and you can be dedicated to civil service also, but you cannot be dedicated to civil service and then be dedicated to corrupt activities. Okay, so we will study what is dedication, how this dedication is important for civil services. Then empathy, tolerance and compassion, that forms the basic value wrapped around with sensitivity of a human being, how much a human being is sensitive towards others. The morality and ethics and all these things, these bigger words come into play when we deal with other people, when we have to take the decision which influences other people. If you sit at your home and you eat food which is not good for your body, can you call it a moral or an ethical decision? I don't think so, because the person who is at harm is you. But certainly if you take too much water to bathe and there is a shortage of water, that affects other people, that's unethical. always when the other person is involved, the issue of ethicality and morality comes into play. But when something has to be done with you yourself for yourself, there is no idea of ethical or moral activity which is there. But this definition is not a hardcore definition. There are several issues in which what you do with yourself or the decision which only impacts yourself can also be categorized as moral and immoral, ethical and unethical. But to a major part, when we are studying ethics and morality for civil services, it always has to do with other people. So when you are dealing with other people, empathy is the necessary element, tolerance is another necessary ingredient, and so is compassion, an even higher form of empathy. Okay, so let us begin our lecture with aptitude. What is aptitude? Aptitude, in a simple way, can be defined as the innate capacity or ability of a human being. Innate capacity can be defined as innate capacity and ability. Now, what is this word innate? It means inbuilt. You must have bought a mobile, any mobile. Let's say you have an iPhone. Then there are several apps inside it which are inbuilt. You don't have to download it. It comes with the product itself. So in a similar way, you were born with some level of aptitude. You have that capacity, some capacity for some work, for some activity, for some field, for some area of art, anything it can be, but you have that inbuilt thing in you, this innate thing, that capacity and that ability to flourish in it. That particular thing, that particular capacity or ability which is inbuilt in you is called as aptitude. Let's take an example. You must have seen people in your home or outside, few people who are not good in studies, but they're very good in sports. Several people who do not have any interest or aptitude or any working knowledge of sports and how does it work. They don't know what cricket is all about or football is all about or any other game is all about, but they are very dedicated to studies. These are complex issues which comes to our mind when we try to understand the differences between aptitude, interest, knowledge, achievement. Achievement simply means how much you have learned, what you have got, what you have become. Okay, what you have become, that is called achievement. So we confuse aptitude with interest, knowledge or achievement, but it is none of this. So for example, if a person is very good in studies and he can study a piece of paper, let's say this is a piece of paper on which 3 articles of the Constitution are written, article number 14, article number 19 and article number 21, and there are 2 people, A and B. You give this piece of paper to A and this piece of paper to B, and then you see what ends up happening. Maybe A is able to read it, retain the information, understand it. Similarly, B would be able to read, retain and understand. but B is limited to reading, retaining and understanding. If you ask B, what have you read on the piece of paper? He has just mugged it up. He says, okay, article 14, it was written that it is about something called right to equality. Then article 19, something about right to freedom, and right to life and personal liberty was written in front of article 21. So he has retained it, he has read it, and he has, let's say, a little bit understood it. Okay. But A goes on a little further to analyze it. He can tell the difference between these three articles. He goes even further to be creative about it, to comment on it and give a comparative analysis. And then he goes one step further to tell you that you can also add or subtract few things from these articles, or how these things are applied in general public or on the life of the people. What is right to equality? So he has understood, he has made these articles as his own. He has understood the very idea of what these articles are saying, and then he has the mind to actually apply those ideas, those articles on the general life of the people. That if you are not treating one person as equal to the other person because of his caste, because of his religion, because of his sex, then it's infringement of article number 14. So A has this ability, but B also only have the ability to read, retain and understand. So what can you say? A have greater interest in constitution, or A is more intelligent and knowledgeable than B, or A has an aptitude for studies, especially for the study of constitutional law. So now it becomes very confusing about what actually aptitude is. Now similarly, A and B has been given a piece of paper and they have been asked to draw a painting. A was not able to draw a painting as beautiful as B was able to. So B's painting is far better than the painting made by A. Now you tell me, what can you say? Is A more intelligent or B more intelligent? Is A have more achievements or B have more achievements, means learning, or A is more intelligent or intellectual or knowledgeable? A has more interest in painting or B has more interest in painting? So again, it's a confusing thing. So let us come to the basis of what aptitude is. Aptitude tells you about the future potential of a person. That simply means those capacities which are innate in you. If those capacities are trained and groomed, if you have been given a particular amount of necessary training and knowledge, what you can become in future is told by the aptitude you have now. So basic aptitude activities or tests has been taken throughout the world for particular services, such as civil services, one of them. Then you have the paper of IIT and IIM, which also tests your aptitude level. Then for several exams in the defense sector, we have aptitude. For the aptitude of officers, there is another test. For the aptitude of a soldier, there is another test. So the innate ability which you have, which tells to the authorities or which tells to the world that this person, if trained properly, will end up becoming this. That future potential which you have is told, is narrated by your aptitude. So if we take an aptitude test, the aptitude of A in studies is more. The aptitude of B in painting and other artistic activities is more. Can we say that A is more intelligent than B or B is more intelligent than A? No, we cannot say this. Maybe there is a possibility that B is far more intelligent than A. We cannot say, because to measure intelligence, the IQ tests are taken, and intelligence in a way is a unitary element. Okay, so intelligence is something which tells you what you are now. On the other hand, aptitude will tell you what you will become in future. This is the difference between intelligence and aptitude. So again, coming back to the example of A and B, if you teach B to be more critically analytical and give a comparative analysis, he can learn very fast. But if you teach A to be better in painting, he cannot be better in painting at all. Now what you are going to say? Who is more intelligent, A or B? So intelligence has to do with what you are now. How quickly you can learn a thing, how intelligently you can apply the capacities of your mind in whichever activity you put in, that's called intelligence. A person who is intelligent is going to flourish in all the fields necessary. But a person who is intelligent, and let's say he is working as a pilot, okay, he is a pilot in Air Force, let's say, but a person who has a greater aptitude for the activities which are necessary for being a pilot, he is going to be better than an intelligent person. But at the same time, a person who is intelligent is going to acquire knowledge in certain way, in certain fashion, that in the time he is going to be sort of equal to the person who is having aptitude in that particular sector of in being a pilot. So what I mean to say, aptitude tells you about the future possibility or potentiality, okay, whereas intelligence tells you about what your mind contains now. In the similar way, interest is something which can be cultivated. Interest is something which can be changed with your experiences. You may have interest in sports, okay, but that interest in sport is not enough for you to play or you to be better in sports. To have a greater amount of skill, you need both. You need interest. At the same time, you also need aptitude. So if you are a great player, if you see them and if you see that they have skills, they must be having interest, and at the same time they must be having aptitude. If any of these things are missing, you will lack in skill. If you have aptitude, like I have given the example, there must be several people in your life who are good in studies, but they are not interested in studying. They are interested in some other work. They are good in let's say in physics, chemistry, math. They take very less amount of time to grasp the subject. That simply means they have interest in that particular subject. At the same time, they are intelligent also, okay. But what if they lack interest? Will they create necessary skills needed? That will be impossible. At the same time, if the person is intelligent and the person has interest, but he lacks the aptitude, the very much innate capacity or potential to make himself better in future, again there is a problem with skills. You will not be having that much skill which is needed. Achievement, on the other hand, tells you about what you have acquired. This tells about the past, how much work you have put into something to achieve and become what you are now. So simply putting, aptitude tells you about the future. And aptitude is that innate ability or capacity within you which tells that what you can achieve in future, tells you about the potential or an innate talent which you have. The talent needs to be groomed. So aptitude, it's about future. Knowledge, it's about now, what you can do with the given resources now. Achievement is what you have achieved after a long period of hard work, after training or after grooming. And interest, it is something which can be changed, which can be acquired. Interest not necessarily means that you also have the aptitude for the same thing. For example, there are many people in this country who are very interested in cricket, but not necessarily they have the aptitude to play cricket. So I hope you understand the differences. These things overlap a lot. The fine line between them is very shallow, it's not very dark. So to understand the differences between these three or four words becomes quite tough. I hope you have understood with these examples the difference between aptitude, interest, knowledge and achievement. So this aptitude, why we are studying the aptitude? Because a civil servant needs to have some amount of aptitude to work on field and in office. Once you get the job and once you become a civil servant, you need to have that aptitude. Then with training and with experience, you can be groomed, you can be brought to the fullest potential. But you need to have that little bit of aptitude inside you, that innate capacity to become a civil servant, to understand something, to understand how the economy works, to understand how the governance works or how the power flow works, how to use that power for the betterment of public. All these are elements of aptitude, your strength, your ability inside you or inside your head, which if groomed and trained will make you a better being, will give you better skills and take you to your fullest potential. That is what is aptitude. Now, after studying about aptitude, let's come to the other topic, which is the foundational values of civil service. What is integrity here? What do we understand by the word integrity? It is synonymous with the word honesty. We say someone is more honest than the other, or we say that one person has been honest throughout his life. Whatever he has done with honesty, or she is very honest in her work. That simply means you are very dedicated. There is no element of cheating involved. You are always working for the sake of working, not for your personal benefit. That is what is called honesty. We need honest people in our country, and we need people with honesty in civil services also. So when this element of honesty is seen with respect to an organization or the whole civil services, that is known as integrity. Integrity, if it is missing, then a person will not be impartial, a person will not have strong moral sense, he will or she will lack ethics and morality, which is the foundation of the human being's life or also the foundation of civil service. The person is also going to lack in objectivity, accountability and other important ingredients. With only this one important factor of integrity or honesty towards whatever work you are doing, towards your duty or towards your responsibility, the whole civil services works in an effective and an efficient manner. That is why the value of integrity has been called as the foundational value. There are several values that I do not lie, or let's say I do not become angry on unnecessary comments. Those are your personal values. You can keep it. If somebody talks something wrong about you, then you stop talking to them altogether, you cut those people out of your life. So we have our code, several code around which we work. Sometimes it is also called that thieves have their honesty, that after snatching whatever they have, they kill the person. And there are examples of such thieves who loot a vehicle, 5 people sitting inside them, and they kill them, because thieves also have honesty. So that is their code. This code is also applied in a positive manner, that once you are working as a civil servant in whichever capacity or post, you are dedicated to your work in the most moral and ethical manner. You are using all the resources in a wise way. You have much mature and achievable goals which have ethical foundation. For example, you can use the fund for the betterment of the downtrodden society, or you can use the same fund to make the road which is already better even better. Okay, so this is upon you. In both ways you are working, but you are wise enough to utilize your resources, to utilize your attention, to utilize your energy, and utilize your fund in the area which is more appropriate. And why are you doing it? Because you know that to bring the society on an equitable level, it is important to uplift the downtrodden society. Hence, more and more funds needs to be flown into that direction, and that is the reason you do not waste fund in other areas. Making road is an important thing, okay, but if a road is already in a good shape, it is already good and vehicles are running on it in a very efficient way, then there is no necessity to again come up and make road all over again, and that same fund could have been utilized for other important purposes, because we see this everywhere. The important, if it's this is a city and there are few pockets of the city which can be called as the VIP areas, all the funds or most of the funds go into this development of roads and canals and street lights and parks in these areas, whereas the other areas which are not so important, where the people with not much resources are living, where the downtrodden are living, or economically weaker sections are living, have not been paid attention to. So how can the city as a whole and society as a whole develop? It is important that these places needs development, but they are already developed. To put more money into it and avoid these important areas which has never seen development in their life, that is not what honesty can be called as. That's not what integrity is. That is wasteful use of resources. That is using resources in an unwise manner. So integrity in itself covers many areas. A person needs to be objective to have integrity. Person needs to be impartial. Person needs to have strong moral sense. Needs to have wise decision making capacity. The ability of discernment to see what is needed and what needs to be put on the priority. All these elements come within the concept of integrity or honesty, or when you are dedicated to your service. So this is one of the foundational value of civil service, and again, if this particular value is not there in a civil servant, corruption will creep in, favoritism will creep in, nepotism will creep in. Then again it is going to hurt the development and growth of the society. Now the other important issue is objectivity. Let's study objectivity first. The opposite of objectivity is subjectivity. Subjectivity clearly means that it is more personal to us. Okay, you may like an actor, I may not like the same actor. You may like a particular genre of a movie, but I may not. Similarly, you may like South Indian food and I may not. So these topics are very subjective. This liking and disliking, they are very different for different people. As it is said that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. You can say a particular thing or a particular person is beautiful, but I may not agree with it. Okay. So it is very important for us to understand that what objectivity means in the civil service. It simply means the ability to see a thing as it is. When you have preconceived notions, when you have prejudices, you cannot have objectivity. So a civil service and a civil servant needs to be away from preconceived notions and also have to throw away his prejudices. Then only you can have objectivity. For example, if you have disliking for a particular section of people and one of them come to you and the person is really suffering, instead of seeing or analyzing his problem very objectively, you are going to connect it with the emotion that these person always come up and they always try to exploit the resources of the department for their own benefit. That was the major problem with this particular section of people for which you do not like them, but this person is different. So you need to pay attention to every little detail. Every case you need to see as a new case. Every person who comes to you, you should see from a fresh mentality, and you should separate yourself from your preconceived notions and your prejudices. For example, there have been examples where a person is lying and he keeps lying and he keeps lying, and then one day comes up when he speaks the truth, the whole truth, an important truth, but everybody takes the person as a liar because now they have the prejudice and now they have the preconceived notion that this person has always lied and he is going to lie again and he is lying. But no, that person is telling the truth. So you need to see every case with a fresh mentality. You have to throw away your prejudices and preconceived notion. I know this becomes a very painful activity, but objectivity, to see a thing as it is very important. Also in other areas of administration such as fund allocation, this becomes a very important quality. You belong to a particular religious community and you have become a civil servant, and there is another religious community who lives in a particular area of the city, and when it comes to the allocation of fund, where are you going to allocate? To the community from which you belong or to the community from which you do not belong, but they need the fund more than your community. So objectivity is very much needed, that what is important now. You are watching this thing as it is, that a person, he may be a liar in past, but today he is speaking the truth. A person who has came up to you belongs to a community you do not like, that is your personal view, but as a civil servant it is your duty to see that case with a fresh mentality rather than with a prejudice or a preconceived notion in your mind. So from fund allocation to security establishments to allocation of security forces for maintaining peace and order, for the distribution of the ration cards, everywhere to implement the schemes and policies of the government, everywhere objectivity is needed. Even while making rules and regulation, objectivity is needed. a thing, whatever it is, has to be seen as it is. Okay, that is what is called objectivity. Then impartiality and non-partisanship. Simply means if you're playing a game, okay, and the umpire or a referee favors one team over the other, is he being impartial? No, he is doing partiality. Okay, if your teacher gives more marks to your friend than to you, both have performed equally, but your friend has been awarded because of some level of connection or some level of history with the teacher, then the teacher is not being impartial, the teacher is showing partiality. In a similar way, in administration, if you show favoritism towards a particular section, towards a particular person, if you bring in patronage or nepotism, or you give unnecessary favors to a particular section of people or to a particular group of people or to a single person also, you are not being impartial in the services. Impartiality is the basis and the foundational value in a way that it brings in equality in the society. It brings in equality in the society. So economically weaker section, this is one section which is residing in one part of the city, and the other part of the city economically well off people. You have friends here, they say that we need some fund for the street lighting. They already have a good street lighting available, but they want to make it even better, so that when they go at night for a night walk, it looks better. They can to create a more better aesthetic view, and you are willing to help them, but you have limited funds. On the other hand, economically weaker section, on that side of the road there is no lighting at all. It becomes very difficult for these people to come back from their work and to go to the market for buying anything. This road has become disaster for young girls and ladies because of the goons in the area. So the necessary condition for maintaining safety and to bring development is to light this road, and you have limited fund. If you light this side of the city, where your friends live or the people who are well off, they are living, nobody is going to question you, because the fund which you have has to be used for lighting purposes only. And on the other side, if you do not do anything here, again nobody is going to question you. But now it is on your wisdom whether you want to be impartial, objective or not. So I think this is an example which explains both the important foundational values, objectivity also and impartiality also. Objectivity in the sense that what is needed. Okay, see the thing as it is, that this road is dangerous for the civilians, it needs lighting, it has to be given lighting. On the other hand, this road, if lighting is provided, it is only going to increase the aesthetic view of the road. It has nothing to do with safety, because this area is already safe. So where you are going to put your funds, that is what is called impartiality. You are not giving contract for lighting to a known person, but it is an open bid. They are coming through the government tender. That is again impartiality. If you try to do favoritism and you try to give the tender for lighting to a particular person whom you know, you may also get the kickbacks from there. Now that is corruption. So partiality is involved, which results in corruption. So impartiality becomes a very important foundational value for civil services. Reason being, you have been given so many power, economic power and other sort of power of rule making and also of implementing those rules, policies of the government, schemes of the government. And in all those scenarios, what really becomes important is that you remain impartial, you remain objective, you see where the funds needs to be spent. That objectivity, that impartiality is the need of the hour. Then comes dedication to the civil service. We have already discussed dedication simply means to be honest to that particular goal or responsibility or duty which you have been given. You can be dedicated to public service, at the same time you can be dedicated to a religious service, you can be dedicated to spiritual service, you can be dedicated to poor people, you can be dedicated to whichever artistic activity which you choose. If you, let's say, a good musician, you can be dedicated to that. At the same time, if you are also a civil servant, you can be dedicated to public service. But dedication to public service and dedication to self service, they cannot be happening simultaneously. It is not possible. Empathy, tolerance and compassion. Empathy, tolerance and compassion. And this compassion is for weaker sections. Can you have empathy without tolerance? Or can you have tolerance without empathy? A better word for tolerance is acceptance. This becomes the foundational value of the civil service, because if you lack empathy, you will not be able to understand the problems of the people. Empathy simply means watching everything with the point of view of the other person, entering into their shoes and trying to feel how the other person is feeling. So empathy helps you to connect better with your friends, your relatives, and when you are in the civil service, empathy also helps you to connect better with the weaker sections or with the downtrodden of the society, economically weaker sections or socially backward sections. Your job as a civil servant is to make the society equitable, to distribute the resources in a better way, to make the society grow in an equitable proportion. And for all these goals to be achieved, empathy is the basis of it. Why? Until and unless you understand the problem of the weaker sections, until and unless you understand the problem of the people who do not have jobs or the people who lack development in their areas, how difficult it becomes to live in a place which is always bad smelling, or a place where there is no lighting available, or a place which is not safe for children and women. Until and unless you have the heart to understand what they feel, you will never be able to work in a dedicated way for them. It is always be mechanical work, it will always be because of some external pressure, but there is no inner motivation to work for such section because you lack empathy. So empathy, again, it's an internal quality of a human being to understand the feelings of the other person, to understand the problems of the other person, to see from the point of view of the other person, and to enter into their shoes and feel what they are feeling. So think about it. If you are a collector of an area and a person comes up to you and tells you, the problem the whole community is facing, until and unless you have that feeling inside you, the feeling of understanding, the feeling of pain which the other person is bringing to the table, how can you work for them? How can you put a strong foot forward for the help of such a section. So empathy becomes a foundational value for civil service. Same is tolerance. Here also your preconceived notion and prejudices needs to be thrown away from your system. You have to be tolerant about the viewpoints of other people, especially the people who are exactly opposite to you. If you are saying the funds have to be spent in a particular way, and if the other person who are the advisor are saying that the fund have to be spent in a way opposite to what you are saying, then you should have some room to give to them and to their ideas. You should have the ability to listen to them, that maybe what they are saying is making sense, or maybe what they are saying is going to tell you about the mistake which you are committing. So to be tolerant is to bring your ego down. To be tolerant is to be more humble in your attitude, in order to listen to the other person, in order to be generous to understand the viewpoint of the other person. Now, why it is important in civil services? When you become a civil servant, you are going to face many challenges with regard to the powers and the duties and the responsibilities you have been given. Now, again coming to the same example, if you have to spend some funds and you have some preconceived notions or prejudices about a particular section of people, then how would you be tolerant? If you do not like the religious tenets of a particular religion and they comes to you for help, what you are going to do? Can you be impartial and objective when you do not like something or you are not tolerant about it? So tolerance becomes a necessary evil. It becomes a necessary foundational value for civil servant to be impartial, to be objective, to have sympathy. That is what is tolerance. Tolerance has been the value in Indian society from a long time. Religious tolerance we talk about is the basis of unity and integrity of the nation. We have a multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multicultural society. What is putting us together? It is tolerance towards other person's point of view, towards other person's religion, towards other person's way of life and way of thinking. If you become too rigid, what is opposite of tolerance? Rigidity. This is the basis of intolerance, that you are not at all tolerant about the viewpoint of the other person. That becomes a problem. For a civil servant, it becomes a necessary value to be tolerant toward all the section, including the weaker section, the downtrodden, towards the religious communities, towards the ethnical and racial communities. Everywhere, everyone needs to be treated equally. You have to be tolerant about their viewpoint, then only you can see with objectivity what are their problems and how you can solve them using your empathy. Then compassion, it is a higher form of empathy, I would say. You are more humble when it comes to compassion. You have more love in your heart when it comes to compassion. And showing compassion for weaker sections simply means trying to bring those weaker sections to the level of mainstream society, that they have proper education, proper healthcare facilities, so that their children can develop in the same way the well-off people do. That is the goal of socialist society or socialist nation which we have developed. In our preamble, the word socialist has been used. Why it has been used? To bring equitable development to the society, and in order to bring that equitable development, weaker section needs to be focused upon. The development of the weaker section becomes a paramount responsibility of a civil servant. Without working for the weaker section, we cannot think about our society's growth in an equitable manner. Okay, it will be a haphazard growth in a similar way that concentration of wealth will be in the hands of few and the other people will be suffering. Until and unless you provide these people with necessary skills, they will not have a say in decision making. And when they will not have a say in decision making, that simply means when they are not empowered, decision making and the power will be in the hand of few. Again, the whole concept of democracy becomes fertile. So, to bring in justice, social, economic and political, which is the constitutional value, it is important to have compassion for the weaker section of the society. And after you become a civil servant, or when you are a civil servant, it becomes necessary for you to abide by the constitutional value of justice, social, economic and political, and equality of status and opportunity. And if you have to fulfill that constitutional value, you need to have compassion for the weaker section of the society. So, that completes our topic about aptitude and foundational values of civil service. We have seen what is aptitude, how it is different from interest, from intelligence and from achievement. Aptitude is that innate capacity which tells you what you can do in future, what potential you have to become something after you have been trained or groomed. That innate capacity within you, which becomes the basis for you to reach to the full potential. On the other hand, interest is something which can be changed with your experience, which can be acquired, but it is different from aptitude. Similarly, intelligence, it is more of a unitary concept. A person who is intelligent is going to be better in applying his mind in all the fields, but not necessarily he may have the particular aptitude for a particular thing. Aptitude and intelligence are different. Along with it, achievement is also different. With intelligence, you can know what you can do now. With aptitude, you can know what you can do in future, and with achievements you can know what you have done in past. Then integrity, impartiality, objectivity, dedication, tolerance and compassion towards the weaker section. We have studied everything. I think you must have understood with whatever examples I have given, and with the concepts I am sure you will be able to solve the answers to the questions which they ask in the civil services. Thank you, and if you have any question, please post in the comment section.